Hey everybody, Sean from Media Assault here, and this is review number 5 of my Essential Movies series, and that series is reviewing every movie in this book. This is Joe Layden's Guide to Essential Movies that you must see if you read, write about, or make movies, and we're entering a chapter called Americana, and the movie today is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and this is a 1939 film that was directed by Frank Capra. It stars Jimmy Stewart and Jean Arthur. And this movie basically is about a man who walks headfirst into the landmine of American politics, not knowing what is going to happen. What happens is that there's a senator in an unnamed western state who passes away, and the governor of that state is forced to appoint someone to take his place. The problem is the governor is squarely in the back pocket of this man named Jim Taylor, who's played by Edward Arnold. Taylor, the governor's basically this guy's yes man, and Taylor wants him to pick a certain person to be appointed as a senator. That way he can have two senators in his back pocket as opposed to just one. The Citizens Committee wants him to pick another guy. So the governor, not wanting to seem like the Jim Taylor's yes man, he goes home and he's mulling over what he should do. And his kids tell him about this guy named Jefferson Smith, who single-handedly put out a forest fire. He's the leader of a Boy Rangers troop. Boy Rangers are sort of a Boy Scouts thing. Apparently they couldn't call them Boy Scouts in the movie. And he's like a real American hero, you know. The kids are telling him about how patriotic he is and how he quotes Abraham Lincoln and George Washington all the time. And the governor doesn't want to even consider it. He's like, oh, no, my kids aren't going to tell me what to do. They don't know anything. So he goes back to his office and he flips a coin with Jefferson Smith not being one of the sides or one of the options. But the coin lands on its side right next to a newspaper with an article about Jefferson Smith's heroism. So the governor sees this as a sign. He goes back and he tells Jim Taylor and the Citizens Committee and the entire state that he's appointing Jefferson Smith to be the senator from their state, the second senator from their state. So Jefferson Smith goes to Washington. Mr. Smith goes to Washington. How about that for a title, huh? So he goes, and the title character, like I said, is played by Jimmy Stewart, and he's sort of wide-eyed in awe that he's in Washington. He gets to see the Capitol building for the first time, and the White House, and the Washington Monument, and he's fallen all over himself with glee that he's, in this highly respected and wonderfully awe-inspiring place. And he can't understand the cynicism by people like his secretary, who's named Saunders and played by Jean Arthur. And he runs into this cynicism pretty much everywhere he goes, and he doesn't understand it. And they make fun of him. They're calling him Daniel Boone and Country Bumpkin and all this kind of stuff. Well, he runs into a problem because Jim Taylor's political machine, who runs and basically owns the other senator from the state, tries to keep him under control because Jim Taylor's people and the senator have this whole plan in mind. There's this bill called the Deficiency Bill, and they're going to build this dam in this unnamed state that's going to make a lot of money for the senator and Jim Taylor. They don't want Jefferson Smith to get involved with that bill or find out anything about it, because then he'll find out who's going to profit from it. So to keep him busy, Senator Payne, played by Claude Rains, gives him sort of a pet project to work on to keep him busy, so he'll keep his nose out of Jim Taylor and Senator Payne's business. And he says, oh, go ahead and put a bill through. You wanted to build this national boys camp, go ahead and do it. So, thinking it's a great idea, Jefferson Smith creates a bill with the help of his secretary, Clarissa Saunders, to build a national boys camp. The problem is that he wants to put that boys camp right on the same parcel of land that Jim Taylor and his political people want to build the dam. So there's obviously a conflict of interest there. And what the movie details is this butting of heads between the big political machine and this it's sort of a David and Goliath battle of one man versus this political machine. I won't say anything more about the plot. What I will say is that, number one, I never saw this movie before. So seeing a 1939 movie about the political process for the first time in 2010, I am really struck by how nothing has really changed since then. This movie is 70 years old, and it's over 70 years old, and there really hasn't been a damn thing changed since back then. Corruption's still in full force. We've still got politicians in the back pocket of corporations. Corporations still run the news media. So I'm a little ashamed to say that this movie, as idealistic as it is, really didn't change a whole lot. I wish things could be the way they are portrayed in this film. I wish that more people could see this country through the eyes of somebody like Jefferson Smith. I think the world would be a much better place. And I say that in full realization that that's exactly what Frank Capra and the screenwriters were going for with this film. And it works. The fact that I am as cynical as I am and that I enjoyed this film as much as I did is a testament to how powerful my desire to see things be right for this country is. And I really think that anybody who sort of blindly follows any of the media's current political creations should probably watch this film and take a step back and see how much things are as similar as they are today as they were back then. Again, I can't get over how much hasn't changed since this film came out in 1939. There is a fair bit of patriotism and rah-rah stuff for America in this movie, but when it came out, it was actually considered to be an anti-American, pro-communism movie, and it was protested by both the press and by politicians for viewing them in such a negative light. The funny thing is that both of those organizations, both politicians and the press, are probably treated much more realistically than somebody like Jefferson Smith is, because I would be hard-pressed that anybody that naive would be able to get as far as he did in life. But hey, I really don't know. So I think this film should be required viewing for anybody who blindly follows the press, or if you turn on Fox News and you're watching Glenn Beck, or you turn on MSNBC and you're watching Keith Olbermann or something, it doesn't matter if you're right or left or whatever, believing one extreme. There's probably not a lot of truth in those very extreme views. I'll just leave it at that. So, did I enjoy this film? Yes, I did. And I really think that it's a surprise to me that I did. I was kind of hesitant to watch this film. There are going to be some films on this list that I'm like, oh, there's no way I'm going to like this movie. And I'm surprised because I turned around and I really enjoyed Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It's funny. It's smart. It's not insulting to your intelligence. Jimmy Stewart's character is great. He plays Jefferson Smith again. His secretary, Saunders, played by Jean Arthur, is a fantastic character. She's a strong woman. She does a lot of things on camera that I'm not a film historian, but I think are probably pretty unusual for a woman on film at that time. I'm not saying that they're unusual now, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these things. I'm just trying to put them in the context of when the film was released. But she's shown as getting drunk on film, kind of hanging out with the boys. She made a marriage pact with one of the press people. and there's just a lot of fun stuff going on with her character, and she's really enjoyable. And one of the best things about this film, Claude Rains as Senator Payne is really good and appropriately slimy. The aforementioned Edward Arnold as Jim Taylor is really good, also very slimy. So the performances are basically the tent pole that hold up this film. The script is really good, but it is the performances that really make this movie. The story is good. It may not seem very eye-opening or original at this point, but again, this movie has been ripped off and satirized and parodied, and who knows what else has been taken from it since its release back in 1939. Again, know your influences. See the original. See this film. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It does belong on the Essential Movies list, and I'm very glad I watched it tonight. I think you should too. So, see Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That's about it. So, thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for the next film on the Essential Movies list, which is Gone with the Wind. You may have heard of it. It is next on the Americana chapter, and I'll be getting that review online probably within the next couple of days or so. I do have the disc here, so I don't have to wait for it, because I did watch Mr. Smith Goes to Washington on Netflix streaming. That's why I'm not holding anything up. If you've got Netflix, go ahead and add it to your queue and watch it. Check it out. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, 8 out of 10. Great movie. And stay tuned to the channel for other movie reviews. Of course, more music reviews coming up. And every once in a while, I'll do a video game review too. So subscribe. And as always, go ahead and comment and rate on this video. I look forward to seeing your comments, reading them, and hearing what you thought about this video and all the other ones on my channel. So thanks very much for watching. Take it easy.